Hey guys, today I've played one of the best games in my life, which featured a very unusual combination. My Grandmaster coach told me that he has never seen anything like this, so let's take a look at the game. You're going to enjoy it. So I knew that my opponent is an international master from India, by the way. It's like the fourth Indian opponent in this tournament. I love playing against the Indians, and I know there are many Indians watching this channel. Guys, shout out to India. So c6, the Caro-Kann. I knew that he's playing the Caro-Kann, and I prepared the following variation. E5, the advanced variation, which is also he replies bishop f5, which is also my prep, and I prepared the Tal variation with h4. Mikhail Tal, one of the most creative attacking players out there, pioneered these variations. There are moves h5 and h6, and actually he was he played what I expected him to play. He played h5, which he usually does against this line. I played bishop d3, takes. This is all theory. And now there are two moves here, e6 or queen a5, and he played queen a5, and this is the prep b4. This is a gambit. I have a video on this gambit in this channel. Check it out. I think it's called Caro-Kann, play Caro-Kann like Jospam or something like this, because Jospam, Jose Martinez Alcantara, famous blitz player, plays this against the Caro-Kann and has great results. So the engine says it's equal, but you sacrifice a pawn, you have huge compensation. So black, of course, has to take. Here, white plays knight d2, and the reasoning behind this pawn sacrifice is that black's queen is a little bit awkward here. It will have to spend some time moving away. The rook will take the b file for white, and white will have great compensation due to fast development and awkward placement of black's pieces. And here my opponent already makes a move that that is not in my files, and I realized it's not a good move, but I was on my own after this. Queen b5. So I realized that this shouldn't be a good move. I know that the mainline theory goes e6, rook b1, and then the queen goes to e7, hiding and protecting the b7 pawn. And there are various lines, very interesting stuff. Check it out if you want to play a gambit against the Caro-Kann. But my opponent, instead of going e6 here, went queen b5. And I thought, okay, if it's not in my lines, probably it's not the best move. Probably it gives some advantage to white, but what do I do? How do I exploit it? Of course, I do not trade the queens because I'm down my pawn, so I go c4. Breaking in the center, whenever your opponent lacks development or lags in development, you should blow open the center, especially if the king is in the center and none of the pieces are activated except for the queen, which is not really activated. It's like it would be better probably on d8 because it gets in the way of my attack and helps me gain tempo attacking it. So now he goes e6, which is necessary because otherwise I would play e6 and open his position and attack his king. So e6 is necessary. Now I go rook b1, and he has to spend another move moving the queen because the queen is attacked. And if he goes like this, I thought that I could, first of all, even sacrifice the rook for the bishop. This is how big my advantage is. Now he has to move the queen, and then I jump in with the knight, and I have a great attack at the cost of an exchange in a pawn, but he's not developed at all. But also I thought after this check, I could just sidestep with the king f1. And actually the engine says yes, it's one of the best moves, and bishop d2 actually also is very fine. So white is also white is close to winning in this position after bishop b4. Self-pinning yourself is not a good idea most of the time. So he goes queen a6 instead. And I go here knight f3. I just develop my pieces as if nothing happened. Yes, I gave up a pawn. I don't have an immediate checkmate or anything, but I have great position. Look at my pieces. They are all active. The rook is active. The knight is active. This knight is also very active. The king will castle next, and I just have to develop the bishop one piece, and he will have to develop all his pieces. And it's not clear where his king is going, because if it's going the long way, then the files are open for the attack. And if the king goes the short way, then also I have some nasty threats here, and the h5 pawn is weak. So really, it's not a position that I would like to play. And my opponent played as if nothing happened, also developed, which is logical. He wants to trade the pieces, go knight b6, for example. Here I go bishop g5. I thought for a long time, I thought for like close to half an hour before going bishop d5, g5, because I didn't want him to equalize, and I knew that this is like the moment I should be precise to utilize my advantage. But unfortunately, I was not too precise here. The engine finds some crazy stuff here. Knight d6. I did not. I would not make this move unless I knew that this is good. So this trading the queens and trading the knight for the bishop and spoiling my pawn structure, even though I spoil his pawn structure as well. But this I would never do. Do this. Turns out that white is much better in this endgame, but okay, humanly speaking, it's a very committal decision to trade the queens like this and go into an endgame. But instead, there are other moves, like castles would be good. But bishop g5 is the third best move, so not horrible. My idea is that once he goes knight b6, utilizing the pin on my knight and trying to trade the pieces, I go knight d2. And the idea is that if I castled here after knight b6, I did not want to go knight d2 because that would block my bishop. And actually the engine agrees, but the engine says that I don't have to go knight d2, that I can again trade the queens like this and trade the knight for a bishop and enjoy a better endgame, which I didn't realize was a better endgame down a pawn with such strange pawns. So I went bishop g5 here, knight b6, knight d2. And here he went knight h6, and from afar, I thought that this is the most logical way for him to play. He'll put his knight here, probably he'll put his other knight here. And from afar, I decided that I'll trade my bishop for the knight. His rook will be awkward on h6. He will have problems with placement of this bishop, where to put it, maybe on e7, but this is the only position for the bishop, but it's not really attacking anything. My knights are better than his bishop, and I decided, okay, I'll take on h6. And this is, turns out, the only real mistake I had in the game. Maybe it's an inaccuracy, but the engine says it's a mistake. Yeah, because turns out that it's fine for me to allow this. I should have just gone like castles, knight f5, and then a4, a5 is very strong. I did not see this plan during the game, so pushing on this file and then doubling up, maybe putting one rook on b3, another on b1, and then pushing this pawn, and just playing down a pawn with great domination in the center. The problem for him is that he cannot even develop this bishop. He has no squares for the bishop, and if he goes here, for example, I'll just trade and then put my knight on d6. So that's his problem. So I should have allowed knight f5. That was not like the best decision by me taken, but still I retain some compensation. He takes back. In some Caro-Kann variations like this is the motif. This rook, sometimes it goes to g6 or g4, even putting pressure, but very often it gets trapped. The rook is not well placed here. It should be somewhere here, like, but not on h6. So I castle. He goes rook d8, putting pressure on this file. Maybe he wants to go c5 or bishop c5. So I go rook c1, best move, strengthening the defense of this square. Now I want to go away with the queen, and there will be no longer a pin. He goes bishop e7, activating the bishop, and I go knight f3. Now the knight protects both of those pawns. Rook g6, as I said, he wants to somehow activate the rook, but it's not threatening anything for the time being. So I go queen b3, which is an inaccuracy according to the engine. The best course of action again would be to go knight d6, but I never seriously considered this move. Maybe I should have. Engines are merciless. I played one of the best games in my life, 92% accuracy, but still the engine finds many ways where I went wrong. So it happens. Now you will see the combination in a couple of moves. So I'm putting pressure on b6, and I want to regain my pawn because I have like 1, 2, 3 attackers of the b6 square, and he has just 1, 2 defenders. And if I regain the b6 pawn, then I'll press on the b file, I'll double up with the rooks, and I thought that at least I'll regain a pawn. How bad can it be? Turns out that he had a strong continuation, takes, and b5. I thought that this is possible, of course, but I would have doubled on the c file in this case, but the engine says that I'm stupid and black is better. Okay, but black will have to find some some good moves to retain the advantage in this position. Instead of this, instead of taking, which is logical, he thought he'll find something more clever. He went rook d5. With the idea, I realized it immediately, that if I take, he doesn't want just to recapture and trade and give me a pawn on b6. That would be around equal. But he wants, if I take, to make an in-between move, to attack my queen first, and then take on b6 without allowing me to regain a pawn. So I take, he goes rook b5, he wants to in-between move me, I in-between move him. This is one of the weirdest combinations ever, knight a8. So my queen is hanging in this position, but I go knight a8 because I calculate that this will be a fork and I'll regain the queen. And the variation that I can show you. So first of all, if he like does nothing, I'm up at knight. Yeah, I just took the knight on b6, and yes, a8 is not the best square for the knight. Maybe it will even in future be hunted, but it's a knight. It's an extra piece. Of course, he cannot allow it. So he has to do something, and he has to take my queen. This is the only move. And after this, I have this check. And wherever he goes, he went king d8. I take his queen. And now I calculated before going for all these complications that he can either take here or he can either take first the rook and then take here. This is one way for him to regain a piece. The other way would be to take here, because this is pinned. But I quickly realized that if he takes here, he's lost, because I take on b7 and his king is too weak. His king is caught in the mating net. Next I'll take here, I'll check him like this. So for example, if he takes here, trying to counterattack over here, I take here. Now, if he does whatever he does, like rook g5, for example, he doesn't have any good moves. Checkmate. So he cannot stop it. He can only like give up material to stop it, but then I'll still win. So I realized that in this position, a rook takes f3 is impossible. So he has to take the rook and take the knight and go into this endgame. And from afar, when going for this move, knight a8, in this position, I calculated going to this endgame, and I thought I'll go rook c7 and be better. And Benjamin approves, actually. So takes, rooks b7. A little bit better. I'm still down a pawn, but his pawns are so horrible. I'll take one of them. Maybe I'll take the second one. And his rook is very bad. This is a problem for him. His rook is misplaced here. It needs to be somewhere here or here or here, but not on g6. It's not serving any purpose. So he tries to activate it. Rook g4. He's also taking this pawn, but I'm taking his pawn on a7. Now I want to take on a6, and if he takes on h4, I'm fine. I'll take on a6, and his bishop and rook are very awkward here, and I'm better because I have an outside passed pawn. So instead of taking on h4, he decides to activate his rook. He goes c5. A great move, actually. I thought he'll do this, because if I take, he'll be able to go, for example, rook c4, and later he'll capture this pawn. For example, if I capture here, he captures here, and it's equal. Yes, I have the outside passed pawn a pawn, but like he also has his trumps in the position. Definitely has counterplay, can check me from here and then take f2, for example. And rook and bishop usually are stronger than a rook and a knight if there are pawns on different flanks, different sides of the board. This is a rule of thumb. So I decided, after he went c5, I decided against taking. I did not want him to activate his rooks. Material is not as important as piece activity in endgames as well. So I took on a6. I took this pawn. I decided let him take, and he took. And then I spent some time calculating. Actually, before that, let me show you what I was calculating as well. Here, instead of taking, I also came up with a very crazy idea. d5, he takes, now e6. Sacrificing 2 pawns instead of taking any of his. And if he takes, I have knight e5. And the threat is to take the rook, first of all, and second of all, this is a check and a fork, winning the bishop. So he has to do something. I calculated bishop takes h4, so he has to give up the exchange. And the position is like this. And I thought I'll take this or this pawn, but then I thought he has those 3 pawns in the center. 2 of them are passers. And I did not know how to evaluate this position. And the engine says that it's equal, but I think black should be like playing for a win here with a centralized king, with those pawns. My king will have to run to try to stop the pawns jointly with the rook, but then the bishop will come to, for example, f6, the king will come to d6, pawns will march, and I could very easily lose this. And I thought, okay, this is too fancy, too clever, all this. But the idea is funnier, right? Sacrificing 2 pawns to put the knight on e5. Actually, I also thought that he's not obliged to take. He can go, for example, f6. And also it's equal according to the engine. So because of all this, I spent a lot of time. But then I decided after c5, okay, I'll take this pawn. And he takes, and I'll try to hint at a draw in this position. So I check him, and he can repeat moves. And if he repeats the moves, it's a draw. Okay, he's a strong international master. I will gain like 8 or 7 rating points due to drawing him, due to this huge rating difference between us, 350 rating points. So draw is fine. Okay, I wanted to play for a win, but he defended tenaciously in this endgame, and now he can start playing for a win with his passer if I allow him to activate his king, for example, and if his rook gets active again. So I did not like the idea of losing this position, so I thought, okay, I'll threatened him with a move repetition, but I thought he's like rated 350 points higher than me. Probably he will decline, but that will give me a more favorable position to play. So this is like the meta game. I thought he won't want to draw, and I was right. He went back, and when I checked him again, he can repeat and make a draw, but instead he blocked. But now his bishop is pinned, and his king is back on e8, which is a little bit worse than what he had before when his king was here, closer to the center in endgames. It's very important to activate the king. And the bishop is pinned. It's no longer even threatening to take the pawn, for example. He will have to spend some time to unpin. And in the meantime, I'm trying to use my trumps in the position. I go king f1 first of all. I want to go with the king closer to the center because kings should be active in endgames. He goes king d7, unpinning himself. Also, he's threatening to take this pawn now, so I go g3. Now again, I want to push my king. He goes bishop b6, overprotecting this pawn, and now I go knight e1. And suddenly I realized I should be playing for a win this endgame, because if I put the knight here, the bishop will be stuck behind the pawn, and the rook will be stuck also. It will have no squares to go to, no useful activity. So I have still my outside pass pawn. I can push it and play for a win. I realized it. And actually, by the way, knight e1 is very important, because if I go here, he has d3 check. And if I take, he'll take this pawn, and all those pawns will fall, and he's playing for a win already. So it was important not to rush with king e2, but first to put the knight on the blockading square. Very nice blockading square, also defending this pawn, also threatening sometimes knight c5. Very, very great square for the knight. And here he went f6 and offered me a draw. And I realized that he is not happy with his position. And there was a big temptation to accept the draw offer and go home, but then I thought, Greg, you should play this for a win. You should get this new scalp. You should try and win. Yes, he's an IM, but you have outplayed him, so you can defeat IMs. You have already in this tournament defeated IMs, at least one, and drew one. So why not play on? And I went knight d3. Knight d3 prevents capturing of this pawn, because that would be a fork and devastating material loss for black. So that's one idea of knight d3. Another idea is that I'm blockading this pawn. I'm not letting him, his rook join the game, join the action. So he goes rook e4, trying to take this pawn, but I thought it's not threatening anything. Okay, he can take this pawn, he can have this. a4, my pawn is marching, and you will see by the evil bar that he made a mistake. He should not have spent time on rook e4. He needed to go bishop c7 and try to hold on, even though white is still better in this endgame. But rook e4 is a mistake, because I push the pawn, and once he goes here, because if he takes, I have a5, and his bishop has no squares. If it goes back, then knight c5 is a fork. So the rook is awkwardly placed on e4, which is why it was not good to put it on this square. So that's why he's not taking. He goes king c6 first. And also, once I go a5 here, he has king b7. And the rook will have to move, and the bishop could take this pawn. But no, it could not, because that would be a fork. So one sample line is this, and he cannot take the pawn because there will be a fork again. So he will have to go here. But then I'll take here, and still it's winning. So actually, I could have gone a5, but I liked another move, which is also winning. Check. I thought that if he goes forward, then I go a5, and this will be a fork. And he'll lose the... this will be a checkmate. I just realized. But also a fork. So he cannot take on a5, and if he goes bishop e7, then I go here, and his bishop is still lost. So this is what I calculated after rook c8 check. And if he goes here, which he did, then I can win in multiple ways, but I liked rook h8. First of all, I'm attacking another pawn. I can take it, but second of all, I still want to push a5, and he will not be able to take on pain of this fork. So here he takes my pawn. He wants to do at least something, but I push a5, and he realizes he's lost, even though I have like very little time, but time control will come soon. Move 40 is in 2 moves, and I will get an extra half an hour. But even without this extra half hour, I would have won this game. He cannot retreat from the defense of the c5 square, because that would be a fork. So he has to go back to a7. But then I have rook a8, and his bishop is just trapped, and he cannot do anything. He moves his king. I take. He moves the rook. He tries desperately to push his pawns, but I'm faster. I go a6, he pushes his pawn, and I don't even have to move the knight. I go rook b7. I calculated so that my pawn is faster. His rook is still in jail. This is crazy stuff. So he takes, I go a7, he goes here, and one last move, rook b1, and he resigns because he cannot stop the queen, and I get this important win at like 18 rating points. So I have 3.5 points out of 8, which is a very decent performance in such a strong tournament. All my opponents were either GMs, IMs, or FMs, all titled players. I'm not titled. I have candidate master title, but it's even not a FIDE title. It's a old Russian title, which is why I don't have a CM next to me on chess.com, if you were wondering. So I don't have an international title. All my opponents do, and I've defeated already 2 IMs, 1 FM, and drew 1 IM. So not that bad. I will be gaining around 50 rating points after this tournament, regardless of my next game result. So if I win the next game, then even more. So I'm pleased with this. If you were rooting for me, thank you very much, guys, and see you in the next recap. Don't forget to comment whether you like this game and the move knight a8. See you.